Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Chapter 1, Nightmares Unleashed. Heather Langenkamp's eyes fluttered open, her heart pounding with the lingering remnants of a disturbing dream. Beads of sweat clung to her forehead as she tried to shake off the nightmare's grip on her. She lay there, immobilized by a deep-rooted fear that she couldn't yet place. The room, bathed in the soft, spectral light of the moon, felt like a haven, yet the echoes of her dream were inescapable. In her fitful slumber, she had been chased through a dark, otherworldly labyrinth by a clawed figure. Its razor-sharp glove glinted ominously, and its guttural laughter sent shivers down her spine. This was no ordinary nightmare, it was the return of an old and malevolent specter. Heather's husband, Chase, stirred beside her, his expression drowsy and concerned. "Heather, what's wrong?" he whispered in the dimly lit room. Unable to find the words, Heather simply clung to her husband, her racing heart serving as a silent testimony to her torment. Down the hallway, a child's voice interrupted their moment of solace. "Mommy." Dylan, their young son, had been awakened by the strange unease that permeated the house. Heather's heart sank. She knew the source of her nightmares was connected to her past, but how could she explain this to her son? How could she make him understand that the very character that had once tormented her dreams had returned? She gently disentangled herself from Chase's embrace and made her way to Dylan's room. The small, innocent boy sat up in bed, rubbing his eyes, his face etched with concern. "Mommy, I had a bad dream," he murmured. Heather sat down beside him, brushing his unruly hair with a reassuring smile. "It's okay, sweetheart. We all have bad dreams sometimes. Tell me about it." Dylan's dream was eerily similar to hers, filled with the same menacing figure with the bladed glove. The coincidence sent a chill down her spine, but she knew she couldn't share her own nightmares with her son. She needed to protect him, keep him safe from the horrors of her past. After comforting Dylan and tucking him back into bed, Heather returned to her room, her mind filled with dread and uncertainty. This wasn't just a series of nightmares, it was a resurgence of the very real fear that had haunted her in her youth. The next morning, Heather sat at her kitchen table, sipping her coffee, staring out the window into the bright, sunny day. But the warmth of the sun couldn't dispel the looming darkness that clung to her mind. The nightmares were intensifying, becoming more vivid and palpable with each passing night. As she absently stirred her coffee, a realization began to dawn on her. Freddy Krueger, the monstrous antagonist of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, had found a way to transcend the screen and enter her life once more. She shuddered at the implications. Meanwhile, across town, in a dimly lit room, Wes Craven, the renowned horror filmmaker, sat at his desk, his brow furrowed in concentration. He was plagued by similar nightmares, the very essence of his craft turned against him. In his relentless pursuit of new ideas, he found himself on the precipice of a terrifying revelation. Wes knew that the nightmares were more than mere dreams, they were harbingers of something dark and sinister, a malevolence that had taken on the form of Freddy Krueger. His creative genius had unwittingly birthed a monster, and it was hungry for more than just fictional lives. Wes Craven was starting to understand that this was not just a script he could write, it was a reality he had to confront. As Heather grappled with her own demons and Wes with his increasingly distressing dreams, they were both drawn into a narrative that was far more real and horrifying than any they had ever imagined. Freddy Krueger had found a way to breach the boundaries of fiction and reality, and they were destined to confront the malevolent entity that had haunted their lives once more. Chapter 2, Haunting Reality. Heather's nights were becoming a descent into an abyss of terror, a relentless barrage of nightmares that gnawed at her sanity. Freddy Krueger's presence in her dreams was no longer a fleeting apparition, it had become a malevolent force that haunted her every thought and action. Every night, she was pursued by the clawed figure, and every morning, she awoke drenched in cold sweat. The fear, the dread, the visceral intensity of it all began to seep into her waking life. Her once idyllic existence was shrouded in a dark cloud, and a growing paranoia set in. She couldn't escape the feeling that she was being watched, that Freddy's menacing grin lingered at the edges of her vision. One evening, after a particularly harrowing nightmare, Heather sat in her dimly lit living room, clutching a mug of herbal tea. The sense of impending doom had grown undeniable, and she knew she had to share her experiences with someone who might understand. As she picked up the phone, her trembling fingers dialed the number she knew by heart. The voice on the other end of the line was soft and reassuring. "Hello." "Wes," Heather's voice quivered, "I need to talk to you. It's about the nightmares." There was a pause on the other end, as if Wes Craven had been waiting for this call. He had experienced his own torment and understood the gravity of what they were facing. "I knew you'd call," he finally replied, his voice tinged with concern. "The nightmares, they're not just dreams, Heather. They're a reality threatening to cross over." Heather felt a chill run down her spine as his words confirmed her worst fears. "Wes, what are we dealing with here? How is this happening?" Wes let out a heavy sigh. "It's as if our own creations are rebelling against us, Heather. Freddy Krueger has found a way to transcend the screen, to become something more than just a character in a movie. He's tapping into our collective fear, our memories, and manifesting in ways we can't fully comprehend." The gravity of the situation hung heavy in the air. Their pasts were inextricably intertwined with Freddy's, and now that darkness was seeping into their lives. Wes knew that to stop this malevolent force, they had to confront it head-on. "The only way to stop this, Heather," Wes continued, "is to become Nancy one last time." Heather's heart skipped a beat. Playing Nancy had once been a source of strength, but now it meant confronting the embodiment of her deepest fears. "I'll do it, Wes. I'll become Nancy again, for Dylan, for all of us." The words were spoken with unwavering determination, a pledge to face the nightmare that had haunted her for so long. Wes Craven's voice on the other end of the line was filled with gratitude and hope. Heather Langenkamp and Wes Craven were now united by a common purpose, drawn into a terrifying narrative where the lines between fiction and reality blurred. They were ready to confront Freddy Krueger, not as characters in a movie, but as real people facing a malevolent entity that threatened to consume them all. Chapter 3: Unraveling Lives. Heather's resolve to confront the nightmarish specter of Freddy Krueger was unwavering, but there was one conversation she knew she had to have before she could take that step. She needed to confide in her husband, Chase, about the sinister events that had begun to haunt her life. One evening, after putting Dylan to bed, Heather and Chase sat in the dimly lit living room. The weight of her fears had grown too heavy to bear in silence, and she needed her husband's support now more than ever. She took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice quivering with a mix of dread and determination. "Chase, I need to tell you something," Heather said, her gaze fixed on the floor. "I've been having these nightmares, terrible nightmares, and they're not just in my head. They're real, and they're connected to Freddy Krueger." Chase, a loving and rational man, looked at his wife with concern but also a hint of skepticism. "Heather, you know how stressful your work can be. Maybe it's just the pressure getting to you. Dreams can feel real sometimes, but they're just dreams." Heather knew she had to make Chase understand the gravity of the situation. She described the intensity of the nightmares, how they felt like a malevolent force actively pursuing her, and the eerie coincidences between her dreams and Dylan's. As she spoke, Chase's skepticism wavered, and a shadow of worry crossed his face. He glanced down the hallway toward Dylan's room, where their son lay sleeping, blissfully unaware of the terrors that haunted his mother. Heather continued, "Chase, it's not just me. Dylan's having the same nightmares. He's terrified, and it's affecting him deeply." Chase's concern deepened, and he took Heather's hand in his. "We need to protect him, Heather. If he's having the same nightmares, it can't be a coincidence. Maybe we should get some professional help. Heather nodded, grateful for her husband's support, but she knew that the nightmares were more than a psychological issue. There was a malevolent force at play, one that was tied to her past and that of Wes Craven. Days turned into nights, and the Langenkamp household was haunted by the relentless intrusion of Freddy Krueger. Dylan's once joyful spirit began to wither under the weight of the nightmares. He would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, his tiny body drenched in sweat, his innocent eyes filled with terror. Heather and Chase tried their best to console him, to protect him from the horrors that lurked in the shadows. But Dylan's traumatized mind was slowly unraveling, and Heather's anxiety deepened with every passing day. One evening, after another nightmarish episode, Heather held her son in her arms as he sobbed, his small body trembling. The bond between mother and son was an unbreakable force of love, but it couldn't shield him from the malevolent presence that had infiltrated their lives. As Dylan clung to his mother, he whispered between sobs, "Mommy, I'm so scared. The man with the scary hand won't leave me alone." Heather's heart shattered into a million pieces. Her son's words were a confirmation of the horrifying truth they were facing. Freddy Krueger had become a very real threat to her family, and she couldn't protect her son from the darkness that had claimed her own childhood. With her husband's support, Heather had taken the first step in unraveling the truth, but the nightmare had only just begun. Freddy's grip on their lives was growing stronger, and they were running out of time to protect their son from the malevolent entity that lurked in the shadows, waiting to consume their lives. Chapter 4: Wes's Revelation. As the days turned into weeks and the haunting nightmares persisted, Heather's bond with her family became an anchor in the storm. But it was clear that the source of their torment was not just a figment of their imagination, it was a malevolent force that had found a way to escape the confines of fiction. Heather's determination to face this evil head-on was unwavering, and she knew she needed guidance. She decided to visit Wes Craven, the brilliant mind behind the Nightmare on Elm Street films, the man who had created Freddy Krueger. She needed answers, and she was certain that he held the key to unraveling the sinister mystery that had invaded her life. Wes's home was a modest, unassuming place, a stark contrast to the terrifying tales he had crafted. As Heather approached, she was filled with a sense of trepidation. The door creaked open, revealing the man himself, his eyes marked with weariness and worry. "Heather," he greeted her with a warm yet grave expression. "Come in." Inside, Wes led her to a room cluttered with books, scripts, and film memorabilia. It was a place where creativity and imagination thrived, but it was also where the boundaries between fiction and reality had begun to blur. Heather hesitated for a moment before she spoke. "Wes, this is more than just nightmares. I've had a revelation. Freddy, he's found a way to cross over into our lives, into our dreams." Wes Craven nodded solemnly. "I've been experiencing similar nightmares, Heather. It's as if our creation, Freddy Krueger, has taken on a life of his own. But there's something I haven't told you." With a sense of urgency, Wes retrieved a thick sheaf of papers from a drawer and handed them to Heather. It was a script, but not just any script. It was his latest creation, and as she read through the pages, her heart raced. "This is a prophetic script, Heather," Wes explained. "It's a narrative that seems to predict the very events that are unfolding in our lives. It's as if Freddy has become a malevolent force that's tapping into our subconscious fears and using them to manifest in the real world." As Heather delved into the script, the parallels between their nightmares and the story on the page were uncanny. It was as if Wes had unwittingly written the blueprint for the terror they were now facing. Wes continued, "I believe this script holds the key to stopping Freddy. You need to become Nancy one last time, to confront the embodiment of our fears and face it head-on. The only way to end this nightmare is to play the character that once saved you." Heather's hands trembled as the weight of Wes's revelation settled in. She knew that by embracing her role as Nancy, she was stepping into a nightmarish world that threatened her very existence. But it was a sacrifice she was willing to make to protect her family and put an end to the evil that had invaded their lives. With newfound determination, she looked up at Wes. "I'll do it. I'll become Nancy one last time." Wes Craven nodded, his eyes filled with a mix of relief and resolve. The prophetic script held the key to their salvation, and together, they would embark on a journey to confront the malevolent entity that threatened to escape their dreams and wreak havoc on their lives. The nightmare had taken a new, ominous form, but they were ready to face it with courage and conviction. Chapter 5: Nightmare in the Daylight. The malevolent presence of Freddy Krueger had transcended the confines of the night, infiltrating their lives in broad daylight. Dylan's nightmares had grown more vivid and intense, and he began to exhibit signs of sleep deprivation and distress during the day. The boundary between dreams and reality had become increasingly blurred, plunging the Langenkamp family into a waking nightmare. Heather and Chase were no longer able to dismiss the horrors as mere figments of their imagination. The eerie coincidences between their dreams and Dylan's nightmares, along with the ever-present sense of dread that hung over their household, were impossible to ignore. One afternoon, as they sat in the living room, the once bright sunlight streaming through the windows now felt cold and oppressive. Heather had been researching their situation, seeking answers and solutions, but the darkness seemed to be closing in. Dylan, who had been playing with his toys on the floor, suddenly froze. His wide, terrified eyes were locked on something unseen. His small hands trembled as he muttered, "He's here, Mommy. The man with the scary hand is here." Heather's heart sank as the realization hit her. Freddy Krueger's malevolent presence was not limited to their nightmares. He was infiltrating their waking world, manifesting in ways that terrorized her son. She knelt down beside Dylan, her voice quivering with determination. "Dylan, it's going to be okay. Mommy and Daddy are here to protect you." Chase, his skepticism eroded by the mounting evidence, was determined to keep his family safe. He locked doors, barricaded windows, and did everything he could to fortify their home against the looming evil that threatened them. That night, as the family huddled together in the safety of their bedroom, the sinister laughter of Freddy Krueger echoed through the house. It was a chilling reminder that their lives were no longer their own, they were trapped in a nightmare with no escape. With each passing day, the terror escalated. The malevolent entity seemed to grow stronger with their fear, feeding off their nightmares and their very real distress. It was as if Freddy Krueger reveled in the chaos and confusion he had sown, reveling in their vulnerability. Heather knew that the only way to put an end to this torment was to confront Freddy, to become Nancy one last time and face the embodiment of her deepest fears. The prophetic script that Wes Craven had given her became their only lifeline, a source of hope and a roadmap to confronting the evil that had infiltrated their lives. As Heather and her family struggled to maintain their sanity in the face of the relentless nightmare that had engulfed them, they had no choice but to face the horror head-on. The line between dreams and reality had become increasingly blurred, and they were determined to restore the balance that had been disrupted by the malevolent presence of Freddy Krueger. Their journey into the heart of this waking nightmare had only just begun, and the darkest and most harrowing challenges still lay ahead. But they were willing to do whatever it took to protect their family and put an end to the evil that threatened to consume their lives. Chapter 6: The Return of Nancy. Heather's decision was both an act of courage and a plunge into the heart of her deepest fears. Embracing her role as Nancy once more meant confronting the embodiment of the nightmares that had haunted her for years. It meant facing Freddy Krueger, a malevolent entity that had taken on a terrifying, tangible form. It was a choice she made not for herself but to protect her family, especially her son, Dylan. With Wes Craven by her side, they delved into the prophetic script that held the key to stopping the malevolent force that had infiltrated their lives. Wes, who had created Freddy, was now determined to help Heather defeat the very entity he had once brought to life. In the dimly lit room, the two of them pored over the script's pages, dissecting every line in detail. They found clues and patterns that connected the narrative to their own nightmares and the looming presence of Freddy Krueger. It was as if the script had become a blueprint for the confrontation they were about to embark on. Wes explained, "This script, Heather, it's more than just a story. It's a narrative that has tapped into our collective fears, our memories, and our experiences. It's a prophecy that holds the key to understanding the malevolent force we're facing." Heather nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I'll do it, Wes. I'll become Nancy one last time, to face this nightmare head-on and put an end to it. But I need your guidance." Wes Craven's eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and resolve. He had created Freddy Krueger, and now he was taking responsibility for the terror that had been unleashed. "Heather, together, we can confront this evil. We'll use the power of your character, Nancy, to battle Freddy and put an end to the chaos he's sown." As they continued to prepare for the final confrontation, Chase, Heather's husband, had been grappling with his own skepticism. While he loved and supported his family, he couldn't fully accept the surreal nature of the situation. Yet, the safety and well-being of his son, Dylan, remained paramount. One evening, as they all sat in the living room, Chase hesitated before speaking. "I may not fully understand or believe in all of this, but I will support you, Heather. Dylan's safety is what matters most." Heather, grateful for her husband's unwavering support, embraced him, tears of relief filling her eyes. The family was united in their determination to protect Dylan and end the nightmare that had ensnared their lives. With their preparations underway, Heather and Wes Craven knew that the final confrontation with Freddy Krueger was approaching. The prophetic script held the key to their salvation, a narrative that had become more than fiction. It was a lifeline to reality. As the days passed and the tension in their household mounted, they were ready to reprise the role of Nancy, the character that had once given Heather strength and courage. The return of Nancy would become a beacon of hope in a world consumed by terror, and the family was prepared to face the malevolent entity that threatened to consume their lives. Their journey into the heart of the nightmare was about to begin, and they were armed with the power of their determination, their love for one another, and the prophetic script that would guide them through the darkness. Chapter 7: Blurring Realities. As Heather delved deeper into Wes Craven's prophetic script, she couldn't shake the eerie feeling that the narrative was entwined with their own lives. The lines between fiction and reality were becoming dangerously thin, and it was as though the script had become a reflection of their own nightmarish experiences. Wes Craven had written the script as a work of fiction, but now it was more than just a story. It was a living testament to their fears and struggles, a mirror of the malevolent force that had infiltrated their lives. Heather and Wes discovered that the characters in the script bore uncanny resemblances to people they knew, including themselves. The story outlined a narrative where Nancy, a character played by Heather, was tasked with facing an insidious entity that invaded her dreams. The parallels between the script and their own lives were striking, as if Wes had unintentionally foreseen the horrors that were unfolding. Heather traced her fingers along the script's pages, her heart pounding as she realized the gravity of their situation. "Wes, this is more than a script. It's as if you've tapped into some kind of supernatural force, a malevolence that's using our fears to become real." Wes nodded solemnly. "That's what terrifies me, Heather. Freddy Krueger, the character I created, has become a malevolent entity. The script has become a conduit for his power, a way for him to manipulate our reality. It's like a door between fiction and our world, and we need to close it." As the family prepared for the final confrontation with Freddy Krueger, the malevolence became increasingly palpable. The nightmare they were about to face was no longer confined to their dreams but was bleeding into their waking lives. Shadows danced in the corners of their vision, and a sinister laughter echoed through their home. The script held not only clues but also a sense of foreboding, as if it was a narrative that had been tapped into a malevolent force. It was a lifeline to understanding the very real evil that threatened to consume them, but it was also a reminder that their journey was becoming increasingly perilous. Heather and Wes knew that the boundary between fiction and reality was a fragile one, and as they continued to prepare for their final confrontation, they understood that they were not just battling a supernatural entity but also the blurred line that separated their world from the nightmare they were about to face. The prophetic script was both a guide and a warning, a source of hope and an embodiment of their deepest fears. It was a lifeline that they clung to as they embarked on a perilous journey to confront Freddy Krueger, a malevolent force that had transcended the boundaries of fiction and reality. With each passing day, the malevolence of Freddy Krueger grew stronger, and the blurring of realities became increasingly treacherous. Their courage and determination were their only weapons as they prepared to face the nightmare that threatened to consume their lives. The final confrontation was looming, and the family was ready to take the first step into a world where the line between fiction and reality had all but disappeared. Chapter 8: The Showdown. The night of the showdown had arrived. The eerie stillness in the Langenkamp household was punctuated by a sinister presence that had seeped into their world. The prophetic script, Wes Craven's creation, had led them to this moment, where the line between fiction and reality had all but disappeared. Heather Langenkamp, once an actress who portrayed Nancy, now found herself embodying the character more than ever before. Her knowledge and wit as Nancy were her greatest weapons, but the malevolent entity they were about to confront was more terrifying and real than any movie script could convey. With her husband, Chase, and their son, Dylan, standing by her side, Heather knew that the battle against Freddy Krueger was a fight for their very lives. They had barricaded themselves in the living room, where the darkness seemed to converge. The air grew thick with tension as the malevolent presence of Freddy manifested before them. His grotesque figure, clad in the iconic striped sweater and fedora, emerged from the shadows. The menacing clawed glove glinted in the dim light, and his voice was a cacophony of malice. "Dylan, you brought me back," Freddy hissed, his eyes fixed on the terrified child. "Your fear has made me real, and now I'm going to have some fun." Dylan trembled, but Heather, her determination steeled, stepped forward, confronting the embodiment of her nightmares. "Freddy, it ends here. You can't hurt us anymore." Freddy's laughter echoed through the room, a chilling reminder of the horror he represented. "You think you can stop me, Heather? I'm your worst nightmare, and I'm here to stay." Heather drew upon the strength and knowledge of Nancy, the character she had portrayed with such conviction. She had faced Freddy before, and she had emerged victorious. Now, she was ready to do it again. The battle that unfolded was a climactic clash of wills and nightmares. Freddy's attacks were relentless, his powers terrifying, and his ability to manipulate reality was a formidable challenge. But Heather, with the support of her family and her own unwavering resolve, refused to back down. With wit and determination, she managed to turn the tables on Freddy, luring him into a trap using his own malevolence against him. The lines between fiction and reality blurred further as they engaged in a surreal battle of wits and willpower. With a final, desperate struggle, Heather managed to subdue Freddy, trapping him within the confines of the script itself, closing the door between fiction and reality. The malevolent entity that had haunted their lives was defeated, at least for now. As the dawn broke, the Langenkamp family emerged from the nightmarish battle victorious but forever changed. The blurring of realities had left an indelible mark on their lives, a testament to the horrors they had faced. Heather, Chase, and Dylan stood in the morning light, their bond stronger than ever. The nightmare was over, but its echoes lingered, serving as a chilling reminder of the malevolent entity they had confronted. The family had faced the darkest depths of their fears and emerged stronger, ready to rebuild their lives and return to a semblance of normality. The blurring of realities had left scars, but it had also forged an unbreakable bond, a testament to their resilience and their willingness to confront the malevolent force that had threatened to consume their lives. The battle was over, and the Langenkamp family had come out of the darkness, forever changed, but with a newfound strength and determination to protect their family from any malevolent force that may try to invade their lives. Chapter 9: Uncertain Victory. The battle with Freddy had been fierce, a harrowing confrontation that blurred the lines between fiction and reality. Heather, Chase, and Dylan had emerged victorious, but the film's closing moments cast a shadow of uncertainty over their hard-fought triumph. The malevolent force that had haunted their lives, once contained within the script, was not easily vanquished. It had left a lasting impact on Heather and her family, the scars of the nightmarish encounter running deep. The Langenkamp household, once filled with the echoes of laughter and joy, now bore the weight of the battle they had fought. The family, united by their courage, had been forever changed by the encounter with the embodiment of their deepest fears. Freddy may have been contained within the script, but his evil presence still lingered, serving as a chilling reminder of the darkness that had once infiltrated their lives. Heather, once an actress who had portrayed Nancy, now found herself living with the aftermath of her character's greatest challenge. The blurring of realities had taken its toll, and her family, though stronger for having faced the nightmare together, was forever marked by the experience. Dylan, who had been thrust into a world of terror and chaos, was left with haunting memories that would stay with him for a lifetime. The innocence of his childhood had been stolen by a malevolent entity that had invaded his dreams, leaving him with a fear that would forever linger in the darkest corners of his mind. Chase, who had supported his family with unwavering love and determination, was left with the uncertainty of what the future held. The battle may have been won, but the malevolent force that had haunted their lives remained a presence that could return at any moment. As the family gazed out of their living room window at the world outside, they knew that they could never truly escape the shadow of Freddy Krueger. The nightmare may have been contained, but it was a reminder that evil, once unleashed, could never be fully eradicated. The uncertainty of their victory hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder that the battle against malevolent forces was a never-ending struggle. As they held each other close, they found solace in the strength of their family bond, a force that had helped them confront the darkness that had threatened to consume their lives. The battle may have left them scarred and uncertain, but it had also left them with an unwavering resolve to protect their family from any malevolent force that may try to invade their lives. The blurring of realities had taught them that the line between fiction and reality was a fragile one, and their courage and unity were the only weapons they had against the darkness that lingered in the shadows. As they faced an uncertain future, the Langenkamp family knew that the battle was far from over. Freddy Krueger may have been contained, but the malevolent force that had once haunted their lives served as a chilling reminder that evil could never truly be vanquished. Chapter 10: A New Reality. The Langenkamp family had emerged from their harrowing ordeal forever changed, their lives marked by the indelible scars of the battle they had fought against the malevolent entity known as Freddy Krueger. As they attempted to adapt to their new reality, they were acutely aware that the horrors of Elm Street had been contained within the realm of fiction, yet the true nature of Freddy Krueger remained a haunting enigma that continued to linger in the shadows. The days turned into weeks, and the Langenkamp household slowly began to regain a semblance of normality. The laughter of their son, Dylan, once again filled the air, and the warmth of their family bond helped heal the wounds left by the nightmare they had faced. Yet, beneath the surface, the scars of their ordeal remained, a constant reminder of the malevolent force that had infiltrated their lives. Heather, who had once portrayed the courageous Nancy, now carried the weight of the character's strength and resilience in her everyday life. The blurring of realities had left her with a heightened awareness of the fragility of the line between fiction and reality. She channeled the courage she had portrayed on screen into being a protective and vigilant mother for her son. Dylan, although scarred by the nightmare, had shown a remarkable resilience. He had faced a malevolent force that few could comprehend, and it had left him with an unyielding determination to conquer his fears. His innocence had been tainted, but his spirit remained unbroken. Chase, who had once been a voice of skepticism, had come to accept the reality of the malevolent force they had faced. The blurring of realities had been a profound awakening, and he had become a pillar of strength and support for his family, determined to protect them from any future threat. The Langenkamp family knew that the horrors of Elm Street were now contained within the realm of fiction, but they could never fully understand the true nature of Freddy Krueger. The malevolent enigma continued to linger in the shadows of their lives, a reminder that evil could never be completely vanquished. As they attempted to move on, they found solace in the knowledge that their bond was unbreakable, a source of strength that had carried them through the darkest of times. They had faced a malevolent entity that had infiltrated their lives, and although the battle had left them changed, it had also shown them the depths of their courage and unity. The blurring of realities had taught them that the line between fiction and reality was a fragile one, and that the battle against malevolent forces was a lifelong struggle. They couldn't erase the scars of their ordeal, but they could face the uncertainty of the future with the unwavering resolve to protect their family from any threat that may try to invade their lives. As they looked toward the future, the Langenkamp family knew that their new reality would forever be shaped by the enigma of Freddy Krueger. They had confronted a malevolent force that had infiltrated their lives, and although they could never fully understand its true nature, they were determined to face the unknown with courage, unity, and the unshakable love that had carried them through their darkest hours. Hello, fellow fiction fans. I'm thrilled you're enjoying Muted Gamer Fiction. Your support means the world to me. If you're loving our stories, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement fuels our storytelling. I'd love to hear from you. Share fanfic ideas or just say hi in the comments. Let's build this community together. Thanks for being part of Muted Gamer Fiction. Keep listening, and your support keeps the stories coming. Can't wait to see your ideas. Happy listening, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you in the next chapter.